Hi, I'm Brendan Howard, and I host a podcast called What People Do. And this is the 100th episode, and almost nobody listens to my podcast. And that's what I have to say about that.
So why do you keep doing this podcast, Brendan?
Um, I started this right before COVID or right about the time COVID happened in 2020. But I started this podcast before I knew no, I guess I knew we were getting laid off. And the first one I did was in person. And then the next, I did quite a few in person in the very first month or two. And that was COVID, lockdown, blah, blah, blah. Then it turned online. But the point of this podcast was because I got irritated with other podcasts that were fixated on getting celebrities on and were fixated on, we have a particular subject we have to discuss. And I'm like, what if I just had a podcast where I just interviewed whoever I wanted about whatever they did? I don't care what it could be. Is there a famous person, but they want to talk about how they like make macrame. And so we don't have to talk about whatever they do, or like somebody who has a hobby. They have a very interesting job, but they have a hobby, and like, let's talk about your hobby, whatever. So I set this up on purpose. It's a bit of an anti-podcast, which is I felt like talking to a person. I'll talk to just about anybody. I felt like talking to a person, and we talked about whatever they felt like talking about. So I wouldn't stop doing it for the same. I feel like I expected it doesn't operate the way a normal podcast is trying to gain listenership or an audience operates. I don't market it all. I don't put it anywhere. So like, I don't know. So your question was, do I keep doing it? I mean, I just keep doing it because it's just an excuse for me to talk to people. Oh crap, I read this book and that was really interesting. Let me interview that person about that. And then they're like, oh, you can interview about my book. And I'm like, great. I get to talk to you for an hour about your book. Yeah.
I would say it is. I mean, yeah, I guess there are other podcasts like that, as in the anti-podcast. And I also have a podcast. My name is Jimbo. My legal name is James Gomes, and I'm going to be interviewing Brendan. I've been on his podcast a couple times talking about Siddhartha. So and I do a similar podcast and I don't advertise it. I almost never share it with anyone. Occasionally, like, I dedicate a topic to a specific person type of thing, and so I'll share it with that person.
Yes.
And I keep doing it.
Yeah.
So are we expecting to take off? Are we being too modest? Do we think we're really good podcasters, and eventually, like, someone's going to stumble upon us and they're going to start sharing it and we're going to be the next Joe Rogans?
I think I'm listening to it for the second time from the beginning, but I caught about a year ago or a year and a half ago, I started listening to the Kill Tony podcast. I listened to it off and on, and then I'm like, I should listen to it from the beginning. So I started from episode 1. Tony Hinchcliffe was a comedian, and Tony Hinchcliffe built like an idea for a podcast that would be live. And he talked, but he wanted it to get big. So Tony Hinchcliffe does stand-up comedy, and he wants people to come to his shows and make money. And Tony Hinchcliffe wants to have a Netflix special, and Tony Hinchcliffe wants Kill Tony to get big. And Kill Tony did get big, over 500, 600, and it's 700. It's in the 700 episodes now. This was not, I like talking to people and I like being in the moment, but I'm very, whatever it is, low self-esteem, not interested in promoting myself. I hate self-promotion. So I got completely, what the heck was I don't know. I kind of just bitterly don't expect to be. Joe Rogan works really effing hard. Tony Hinchcliffe works really effing hard. Who's that guy who did it in his garage for years and years?
Right. I know you're talking about. Yeah, he interviewed Obama. Yep.
Mark Maron works really. It seems like he's not working hard because the thing is casual and it's in his garage. But Mark Maron works hard to get to work on that podcast. I wanted to make this piece of art that's like, I show up on a corner and I'm there for an hour and then I pack up and leave. And like, I'll come back a few weeks later and you show up on the corner and you do a thing and you pack up and leave. That's what this podcast is. Yeah.
I personally started off with a podcast because I got into podcasts listening and I really liked them.
Okay.
And so a friend's like, we should start a podcast. And I was like, yes, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And then around that time is when podcasts started becoming monetized. So
okay.
the ads drove me crazy. And then my
Also
buddy
me.
wanted, yes, and then my buddy wanted to have ads because that's what podcasts do. And so I was kind of against that starting off. So part of my thing was I didn't want ads. And now I've cut out there's very few podcasts I listen to, and podcasts that have ads, like if I have to go through 5 to 7 minutes, or even 60 seconds is kind of a long time for me. So I have a very, I guess, high sensitivity to podcast advertisements. And so that has always kind of been like, I don't want to be like that because that's annoying.
Me too. Do you like it more? So again, I listen to Kill Tony all the time. I use it to fall asleep to. I listen to it, whatever. I got to do physical therapy for 20 minutes. I got to do PT exercises. So I'm like, I'll just turn on a Kill Tony episode. It's very easy for me to listen to. It's very interesting, but you can put it on in the background. I like the ads better that they read them. Like they try to make them funny, or they try to come up with funny times to mention the advertiser. So that's less. And as you said, the ads are very short. So, I mean, there's a tendency to, if you're a small podcast, I think, to take any ads anybody offers, and then it's the advertiser can govern. We'll do an ad, but it's got to be 90 seconds, or we'll do an ad, but it's got to show up 4 times in your thing, whatever their metrics are to figure that out. I also am super irked by ads. So, yeah.
Yeah, it almost seems just like a punishment. Like the ads are just punishments for people that aren't funding a Patreon or like some type of subscription service.
Yeah, well, again, I come out of publishing and media, I mean, I suppose there's lots of profit levers, but the 2 typical profit levers for media is you can have advertisers that pay to talk or show things to your audience in print or online or wherever it is, or on your podcast, or you can get the users to pay. And so advertising supported stuff was very popular. The internet sort of laid waste to advertising support in newspapers and magazines and websites. And so then trying to get people to pay for something you're used to getting for free. People are used to getting podcasts for free now. So who's going to pay? I don't pay to listen to any of the podcasts. I've given money to those things, but I don't pay to listen to any gated podcasts right now. So they have to make money one way, advertising or subscriber. So
yeah, I also don't. And one of the podcasts that I do regularly listen to, I could pay them money to listen ad free, and I haven't. So I mean,
I would. I hate ads. So I have. Now I take it back. There have been ones in the past 5 years or so. There was 1 or 2 podcasts where I'm like, oh, you can pay to listen to it ad free. I think there was a psychologist I really liked, and she had a version of her thing that was without ads, and I thought, great, listen to that for a couple of years. Then when I wasn't listening to it, let it go. But I hate ads so much. If Kill Tony offered a version that had 0 ads. But now it's just like YouTube. YouTube has 2 kinds of ads. One is, if you don't have YouTube Red, YouTube sticks ads in. And that makes money for the creator. The creator can choose to do that. But then even in addition to that, they'll still spend 3 minutes talking about their Patreon and all the stuff they're selling you. So even if you turn all the YouTube ads off and they're getting YouTube ad revenue, within the audio of the podcast or within the audio of the YouTube video, they're still putting their own ads, which are part of the podcast that aren't part of the standard ad thing. So it's like double ads for ugh.
Okay, I do want to get back to why you're still doing this,
yes,
even though I'm like
question.
tempted to just talk about ads for like the rest of the hour. But is another form of like not promoting, not trying, admitting that you're kind of lazy when it comes to doing the podcast. And I would admit I'm also lazy at a lot of aspects as well. Is that like a safety mechanism against failure?
Yes. So I would say I don't like advertising. So I think advertising is corrosive and it's overdone and it's everywhere and it annoys me and it interrupts my ability to absorb content. I want to be able to support the people. So I get why they're doing it. I get why it happens. I get why stores advertise their stuff. I don't like advertising philosophically. And in addition, just like you, I'm lazy. And look, I don't like promoting and marketing naturally. I don't do that naturally. It's not part of my personality or it's not part of my tendencies or my skill set. So I don't want to do it. And then, yeah, there is definitely a part of it, which is I don't want to try to walk around telling people to listen to my podcast because I don't try actively to make my podcast better or improve it. I myself get better over time, better speaker, learning more things about more things, learning how to talk to people better, but I don't try to do that actively. And so when I think about I should get people to come look at my thing, I'm like, look at what thing? It's a nothing. And then if people are like, oh, this is so great, I'm like, it feels like nothing. I did it. It wasn't hard. It feels like nothing. So because I'm not struggling to do it, I feel like it's not good. And then why would anybody want to listen to it? And then nobody does listen to it. So you're like, well, why would anybody listen to it? It's easier just to say, I don't care if anybody listens to it.
But do you care if anyone listens to it?
No, I absolutely don't. The point of this particular podcast is I want to talk to people and have long conversations with them. And so I make a podcast to do that. So that's what its function is. I like having conversations with these people, meeting these people, talking to them about the stuff that's in their head or the stuff they've produced, ask all the questions I've never got to ask questions about. That's what it's for. It's for my own curiosity. I worked in media publishing. Then you have to think about, what do the advertisers want? What do your corporate overlords need in terms of profit or synergy with their own ideas across all the different lines? What do your readers want? Well, I don't have to think about what my the whole point of this podcast is, after many years in media and publishing, I'm like, I'm going to make a thing and I don't give a crap whether anybody likes it or not. I'm just going to make it. I don't care. So that's what it is. It's sort of thumbing my nose at like, I don't want to think about the listener. Listen or don't listen. I don't care. Whatever.
So it is just a thing you like. And
yep.
Do you find yourself being podcast host outside of podcast?
I do this. The thing I do in my podcast is what I do in normal life of asking people questions. So you're just, wherever I am, I can come up with questions to ask people. And so, yeah, it's just a natural thing I do. It's usually exhausting, because oftentimes I'm trying to entertain myself and the person across from me is boring or they're not giving me any energy. And so I go hunting through what shoes are they wearing? I like your shoes. What's your job? I saw you here last Friday, but you're not here every Friday. How come? Jewish. Did you like the rabbi's sermon? And then what did you like about the rabbi's sermon? And blah, blah, blah. I mean, whatever it is. What job do you do? Who are your kids? What do your kids do? Does your foot hurt? I just ask, why does your foot hurt? Oh no, that's terrible that you had that thing. So I just ask people questions as just a way of like, can this conversation go anywhere? I'm kind of graspy and clingy. I'm trying to extract some energy out of a conversation with another human being. I find it exhausting. So sometimes I've started doing a thing where I lean back more. And I think I do that with my podcast now too, where I'm kind of let the person talk, even though I'm like, I'm getting bored or I'm not. Let the person talk about the thing. And then not press so hard for like, I'm bored. I've got to do something. Something's got to happen. Yeah.
I don't know if I was like this before or not. I think I'm more of a know-it-all, someone that wants... I don't feel like I want attention, but when I'm around my family, I can observe how people are fighting for attention. And so I know, just looking back, I'm naturally doing that as well, even though I don't feel like I am. So for me, the podcast really helped me to be a better listener, but I do find myself, kind of being a podcast host in real life too, just because, and it kind of relates to part of what you're saying. Podcast conversations are just so much more engaging, interesting, better than like, and I guess I don't like small talk. And so I do find myself, maybe being more podcasty in normal life as well.
I have a question. Have you had people on podcasts? Because I sorted this in having to interview whoever for the media job. Sometimes you have to talk to people with products. You have to talk to people who even people without products and services. Some people are just self-promotional, or there are things they like to talk about. And so they want to bring all things back to that conversation. So you'd run into these people that seem like they're on a track, or they're self-promoting. Like they're super happy and they have this thing they want to talk about. So they want to talk about how great it is and want to tell you all about it. And that's kind of why they're on my podcast. You want to talk about something. Okay, talk about it. Do you see a difference between people who are trying to have an active, alive conversation versus people who are kind of there to promote? Do you have people on who are promoting stuff. They have a book, they have a thing, they have a job they like to talk about. Are they promoting, or that's not what happens on your podcast?
I don't think I've had a single person on my podcast that's promoting something. It's
okay.
I wouldn't be against it. But I am fairly honest especially when I reach out to other people, like what you're saying. Like I read a book and I'll see if I can find the author's email and I'll send them an email. And I'm very clear. I do a podcast for fun.
Yes, that's how
It's
podcast
just a
for
hobby.
me. Is that
yes,
right? My podcast.
I do a podcast for fun. It's a hobby. I'm not an expert in anything, and I don't have a lot of people that listen. So like right off the bat, like people that if they do read that email, that's probably going to weed out anyone that's trying to promote something, because they're not going to get what they want from me at all.
I've had in that so I do this. Something is interesting. So someone made a movie, or someone often wrote a book I'm curious about, and instead of reading the book from cover to cover, I'm like, oh, that book sounds really interesting. So interesting. It's right in my wheelhouse. I'll ask to interview the person, and then sometimes I read the thing after, sometimes before, whatever. But there's some people who they either self-publish or they write so many books, and they're old rabbis, old professors, old people who are kind of retired or semi-retired who are still producing content. They'll just come on. They don't care. I'll just talk about the stuff. But there's people who are more middle career or early career. And if those people are on a real book tour, if those people are really busy right now, so they have a full-time career and they wrote this book and they got their family stuff and they're on this book tour, I totally understand. They never say that's too small for me, but they'll just be like, I can't do it now, or I don't want to do it now. Or I'll try to set it up a couple times, or we'll schedule, and they'll have to blow me off a couple times. And at some point, I'm like, I just stopped trying to reschedule. That's fine. I'm not offended at all. You're busy. You don't have to go talk to any rando about whatever your thing is.
What percentage of people you reach out to respond, and then what percent of people that respond do a podcast?
I've never checked the numbers. So if 100% of all the people I've reached out to and asked for a podcast, probably, it might be crazy. And again, I'm not reaching for celebrities or people. If people seem really busy, you go to their website, or these people are on Good Morning America and whatever. They're making some Andy Weir, who made Project Hail Mary, the biggest movie in the world. I would not email Andy Weir's press team and ask to interview him. So I'm looking for approachable people, mostly authors, and they're in a total different lower bracket. They're less in demand than actors and actresses and stuff. I want to say 70%. So 70% of the people I email and say, hey, I read your thing. I saw this on your website. I heard about you. Someone told me about you and your research, and I'd like to talk to you about it. It's just a podcast for me. It's not a big deal. We can set it up anytime you want. Yeah, I think 7 out of 10 people that I've actively emailed will say, yeah, I'll do that. But again, I'm picking some professor not the professor at Oxford, but the professor at UC Riverside, who's thinking about that same subject. And they wrote this little niche book that I heard about, and I don't want to read it because it's going to be too academic. But I'm like, that sounds like super interesting topic. What would that researcher have to say? And I don't think people ask them for interviews. So if they're looking for experience doing interviews, or they're just like talking about the topic, and they'd be happy to. I wrote that book 2 years ago, and it's academic and nobody reads it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm probably reaching for a way higher quality guest than you, because I would say like 10% respond. Okay.
Give me an example. Can you think of somebody who like you reached out to and you got nothing, or they said no?
Well, so maybe I should get maybe I should get a different email address, because maybe some people might not even see the email as well. Maybe. Just going to spam. I have a Yahoo I've had for like 30 years. But anyways,
sure.
Yeah. Okay. So example, I recently emailed Michael Shermer of the Skeptic magazine, and he's like
for Michael Shermer. Exactly.
But I had emailed him before about something else, or I had emailed his podcast before about something else, and his office forwarded it to him, and he gave me a response. So he had responded to something before.
Yep.
But yeah, he didn't respond to that. I did interview my first person with a Wikipedia page over the summer, And it was like one of those things, like I was interested in meta ethics, which is, if you take those words apart, it's pretty much what you would expect. And I reached out to like 10 philosophers, and I actually asked GPT, I said, give me a list of meta ethic philosophers that might be willing to do a podcast like mine. And it gave me a list of like 5 or 7 people. And I found all their emails, and I sent them an email. Probably half of them responded to me. And then I did an interview with one of them.
That's awesome. So I've done that. I never usually bulk across subjects. The other thing is my podcast, I don't want to delve deeply on purpose into any particular thing. The whole point of this is, in my ideal, I've tried, like, I want to talk to somebody who cuts down trees. I want to talk to somebody who mows the lawn. So I reach out to these associations and I can't find anybody. I still want to talk to somebody who does a plumber. But if you go to a plumbing association, you don't hear anything. So they just don't have a function for, nobody wants to talk to plumbers usually. So the associations aren't equipped to think about, do we want to ask members if they want to talk to some rando with a podcast about plumbing? But my thing would be, there's a bunch of Jewish episodes, but that's only because I read Jewish books and I'm into Judaism. It's not because I think the thing should be about Judaism. It's about nothing and everything. So all that to say, yeah, you're kind of that thing where you have a blanket thing where you ask like 5 or 10 people and see who responds because I want to think about this thing. That's interesting. I seldom do that. That's an interesting thing.
And it's just like rejection after rejection. I know. Like I feel like I'm on like a dating app, and I'm just like not a good looking guy, but yet I keep trying, even though like women are not interested in me.
So then in that case, I wonder if I'm reaching middle to low tier guests, people that are never, over the course of a year, may never, other than maybe they're on an academic panel once or twice, or maybe they write books and nobody interviews them about these books. Like there's this historian, Jeremy Black in the UK. Jeremy Black has written like 100 history books. I can go to any bookstore in the nation, in America, used or new. And if I roll through all their books, there's usually at least one. At every Barnes & Noble, there are multiple books by Jeremy Black. He's just hugely prolific, and he likes to talk about his stuff. And he's writing constantly. So he's super old, but he's still writing as far as I know. So he'll just, whatever, he'd talk to me. And it's like 8 o'clock at night, and like his wife is making dinner, and he's bad with the technology, and he's blasting stuff. But I interviewed him twice. He's like, you want to talk about more stuff? Feel free to interview me again. I'm like, I just didn't have more stuff I was legitimately interested in. He talked to me about all the stuff I could legitimately talk to him about, a generalist. So I think it's just a different, other people are busy. Again, how old are they? What is their normal job? How busy are they? How excited? When I email them, when I express, I'm excited about this. I read this book, or I saw this article, or this person told me that I should read books by you. And so I really want to talk to you. Whatever, there's like a spark of curiosity that's clear in there versus like I'm doing a study of something and I'm trying to interview people for like a paper or something. I don't know. We should, I'd be interested. We should compare. What does your query look like versus my typical query? And maybe we'd figure out some stuff. Ooh, I like that. That's a good idea. I should mention that.
If I should probably behave a lot more like you if I wanted to regularly produce episodes. And I guess like back to me, I just don't care that much. I mean,
yeah.
You had mentioned these podcasters that that work hard, and when you talk to any successful person, it's always the same. It's not always. It's mostly the same story. I wanted to be a writer, so I started writing every single day. I write every single day. I write on New Year's. I write on Thanksgiving.
Obsessives.
Yes, and that's not me.
Nope, it's not me
and it's the same thing with podcasting. I really wanted to get into podcasting. I listened to podcasts. I learned how to edit. I learned how to write. I learned how to market. I do editing. I like that. I think it's fun. I like reading books, and I like talking with people, and I like engaging with the content. But I'm not really like just like you. I'm not interested in self-promoting. I kind of think it's yeah, I guess I'm also super annoyed by like that GoFundMe type. It's like sure. everyone wants other people to fund their hobbies, and so
especially Kickstarter, GoFundMe. Sometimes
yes.
Also that leans toward charity stuff. Kickstarter is 100%. I want to make a thing. Can I get enough people to give me enough money?
That drives me crazy. It's like,
why does Kickstarter drive you crazy?
because if you want to kickstart,
Okay.
go make some money and do it.
Yeah, just make a thing. If you
Don't
wanna make a thing, go make a thing.
Don't come up with this idea and then ask all your loved ones to share it, and then you get mad if they don't, or you know whose names it donated and who did. I mean, like just like the fact that it's my situation has changed recently, but for most of my adulthood, I didn't have a whole lot of money. And I wasn't asking people to give me money so I could do the things I wanted. I made choices. I saved my money to do the things I wanted. And I think that's the way it should be. You don't like go and ask everyone for money so you could do your hobbies. Either do your hobby or don't.
So I think there are multiple things that I think that is a fantastic issue. There are multiple things that tie into that. One is the argument, and writers will say this too. If you want to make a podcast or you want to write, what's the number one advice? Oh, you should write. And getting people to, you should want to write. If you don't want to write, you're just not going to be a writer. Now, for lots of people, that's probably true. Then there are other people who are kind of relationally creative. Like, that's why I have a podcast. I don't want to sit down and write by myself. I don't want to sit down and make YouTube videos of me talking. It's fucking boring. I don't care about that. I much more prefer conversation. So if I can write a sermon and then deliver the sermon to I don't care, one person's going to look at it, don't care, then at least there's something connected there. It's the blowing stuff out into the world that doesn't do it for me. So maybe those Kickstarter people are like, there's this thing I want to do, but I really have to feel some communal energy that people want this, and then that will motivate me to do it. So it's possible there's that. So I'll just put that out. And then sometimes, like I talk to people who make tabletop RPGs sometimes, and for those people, they can write everything they want, but they have to pay for art. So if they want to pay for art and not do free AI art, that's the one thing. I can't produce my book unless I pay artists, and I don't want to pay artists just out of my own pocket to make a beautiful book. I want to make a beautiful book that people will like, so I have to know there are people who want to buy this. Then I'll pay the artists, we'll get the art, we'll put it into a book. So there's another reason I'd put for people creating art stuff. I can't create all the stuff to make it what people would want, so in order to do that, I have to know that that expense is going to be front loaded.
Well, I would say they don't.
Well, technically they don't. I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
technically do.
If you think you have something that people want to buy, then take a loan out. Like,
sure,
you take the cost. You take the risk. Why should other people have to take the risk so you could find out the hard way that you're not that good at what you like to do?
So that's what I suspect. Some people like me asking questions, and some people pay me in roles where I will ask questions, but not very, very, very few do. And clearly, whatever the good level of host or question asker is, I'm not at that level. So either I'm not famous enough, not lucky enough, not skilled enough, not experienced enough, don't have the right kind of voice, don't have the right kind of questions. I listen to myself on these podcasts sometimes on the one for pay. I'm like, my God, I blather my way into a question about stuff, and the person likes it and they respond. But then when I go back and listen to them, like, this fucking question goes on for like 15 seconds. I could have asked this question in 4 seconds. So sometimes I'll clip part of it out. Like, I'm thinking. Now I'm at my question. I'm like, chop that shit out. Who needs to listen to that? So you do become aware. This podcast, there's no awareness. It's not pushing against anything. So if people show up and will talk to me about something they like, everyone will talk about something they like. So there will always be guests because people like talking about themselves. But it's not grinding against any millstone. So the grain is not being crushed down and refined. So that it's not getting better. I'm not trying to make it better. I'm not actively trying to refine it, because if I were, as you point out, I would ask people to listen to it and get feedback from them. Do you like this or that? This or that? And if they said they wanted me, we really want you to do a podcast and we want it always to be about this one thing. Like, well, if you're going to pay me to do that, great. But this is my free podcast. I get to talk about whatever I want. If you don't like listening to it, well, don't listen to it. If you make something for people to buy, you have to adjust to your audience. What does your audience want? People who like you, well, I like the questions you ask, but I don't care about the people you have on the show. Or I like the people you have on the show, but you ask too many questions, or they're too long, or you don't talk about this. I want you to talk about this. Well, the next time you do an interview with somebody on that topic, you talk about this, because the people who pay you money said, I like it when you talk about this. You're like, okay, I can talk about that. That's fine. I'm not doing that with this podcast, apparently.
But you mentioned for the podcast that pays you,
yes,
you're listening to yourself, and I had this same experience when I first started podcasting. It was painful to listen to myself, but I found myself getting better and better. Instead of, like, for instance, if I didn't like the way that I talked about a movie for 15 seconds before I asked a question,
sure,
because same thing. Like, I don't need to talk about a movie for 15 seconds to ask a question. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I stopped doing it. Like, I just naturally stopped doing it because I was listening to the audio, editing it, and it was more work. So, like, I was literally
correct.
I was like, it was like painful to listen to, and it was also work I had to do. So, like, I got better at it. And my friend that I was doing the podcast with that didn't do any editing, he didn't get better at it. You know, like, he wasn't listening to himself. He wasn't having to correct all his ums and all his other things. So for him, maybe he got a little bit better, but he didn't get as good as me.
So I think that's probably true. There's the other thing. You talk about being irritated by advertising. The other thing, it's irritating by somebody who took on podcasting very early and started doing it at the old job, my old media job. I worked with one other person who was an audio. He was there. He had audio engineering skills. He'd gone to school for audio engineering. He liked podcasts too. And so we made a polished podcast. I, myself, do not have the skills to produce a polished, well-done podcast in that way. I could learn it, but I don't want to. I'm lazy. I don't want to. So for that one that I make for an association, I take half my fee. They pay me X gross. I take half the gross and I give it to my buddy's brother, who is a fantastic audio engineer. So all I do is record the stuff, spit it to him, and he spits it back. And he's edited all that stuff out with high quality software and all his years of experience. So if I wanted to make more money, I'd learn how to do it myself and I wouldn't use him, but I don't want to. So consequently, I don't. But that's the problem with this podcast is, okay, so here's the question then. This gets to a more fundamental question. What is this podcast, which is on its 100th episode, for? And the answer is it's not for anything. It's just for me. I mean, it's for me.
That's what it's for. It's for you.
Talk to people. Yeah, that's it. So it doesn't have to have output. But I pay Podbean $14 a month to host a podcast no one listens to.
You should move to Spotify and they'll host it for free.
But then won't they put like advertisements and crap in it?
Nope. Mine's hosted through Spotify. I pay nothing.
Oh, I remember why I did this. I picked Podbean because I have run into the situation. In fact, we ran into the situation at the old company. We had stuff in SoundCloud and or a SoundCloud competitor, and things changed, URLs changed, everything was broken. So here I'm like, you know what? I own. So also, if you put stuff on Spotify, out of the question of who owns that or what they can do anything they want with that. If you put that on Spotify, a Podbean, I pay $14 a month. I own that stuff on Podbean. Podbean's not allowed to do stuff with that. So that's when I initially did it. I think I was sort of philosophically like, I'm going to own this, not because it's valuable, but because this is going to be mine.
Well, I feel like I own it.
Honestly, and again, unless you became super popular or they wanted to make money off it or something, I mean, again, there'd be people who want to give you money so they could own some of it if it was great, but maybe it's not great. Why do you do your podcast? So when did you start it? How long has it been going?
I'd have to double check the date, but I maybe 5 years or so. Is when I probably did my first episode. Oh, I did. Yeah. So maybe like 2022 would have been my first episodes. I had started my first podcast maybe in 2017.
Okay.
So my first one, I probably thought I was going to be like good at podcasting, and we were going to maybe have a successful podcast by the fact of like people would listen. So maybe I expected more success when I first started.
Do you remember where the turn was? There's one of these questions I had ChatGPT write us questions. When did you realize your work wasn't going to take off? What shifted in you? I already worked in publishing. So I had a full understanding of the fact that I didn't have any interest in actively promoting or building a community. And I came from a place where we worked very hard at acquiring and appealing to a community. We owned that community. Everyone in that space read or listened or watched our stuff. We looked at the traffic. We had high enough traffic. We're like, everyone in the industry looks at our stuff. So then it's just a matter of gathering new stuff and holding on to it. I knew how much work that takes to do that. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do that. So no one's going to listen to my thing. Where was your point where you shifted and said, oh, it's not going to take off?
Yeah, it was probably fairly early on because my friend and I did a decent amount of promotion, cross promotion.
Okay.
And yeah, I realized like I shared my podcast and people wouldn't listen. Like I'd share it with like my nephews, cousins. They wouldn't even listen. So it's like my friends and family won't listen, then that's not good.
That's totally me. I felt a great sense of joy. I go on Friday nights and I do music like every other Friday night at a synagogue out here. And my mom occasionally, the fact that those people are there are fine. My mom occasionally in California, she'll be like, oh, I'll put YouTube on and I'll like watch part of it. Like I'll turn it on and watch, like skip through and watch like a song or something. And she's not Jewish and she doesn't get, but I'm like, yeah, I don't know beyond that. The fact if one of these questions was, what would happen if your daughter never listens to your podcast? I'm like, if I spent 30 years on this podcast, I've been doing it for 6 or 7 years. I'm working on podcasting for like 15 or 16 years, maybe a little, I don't, somewhere around there. If she listened to one episode of whatever 100 episodes and was like, oh, I listened to half that and I thought it was pretty good. Like internally, I'm like, oh, okay, that's awesome. That's great. One person listened to my podcast. People agreed to talk to me for my podcast. I'm like, that feels like a win. The problem is it won't make me any money. I would love it if, again, I would love to podcast host for other people more than I do already. I only have 2 associations I do it for. I would love to do this all the time for other people. I don't have this need to make a podcast of my own, build it and sustain it. I'm happy to work on other people's stuff. They're just, for whatever reasons, I haven't asked enough people or the right people or people don't need it as much. But yeah, I'd be fine. The fact that my mom watches like 5 minutes of a service like once a month or whatever, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's so cool that she gets to watch it and she enjoys it. That's awesome.
So my first podcast, my dad was like our biggest fan. Like he would,
see?
we were doing pilot episodes of television shows. So he would watch the shows and he would argue with us and talk about it. And he actually came on as a guest a couple times as well. So like that was really cool. Yep. My mom kind of listens to the podcast that I do now. And I did a couple episodes with my brother and we talked about childhood. So I feel like some of my episodes are very personal and other ones are more just like interviewing some guy that wrote a book about the death penalty.
Yep.
So there's like a range. Some of my episodes like that where I met you I have like maybe 5 to 10 episodes about the novel Siddhartha, which is a 100-page novel. If you're a fast reader, you can read it in 2 or 3 hours. And I've spent probably 10 hours talking about it.
Right. Yeah. And then we revisit it. You're like, well, do you want to, like, that's how I met. I think I met you originally on Reddit. Do you remember, did I ask you what did I ask you?
I think I saw your post and
asking for podcast guests.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think I responded with something like, I do a podcast and I read Siddhartha every year or something like that. Like
I'll interview about the fact that you read Siddhartha every year. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And then
like I probably said some other things, but like that, like, so because I really liked your idea. And when we met, I must've been a part-time teacher. And so like, I didn't really do anything. I was like a stay-at-home dad. I taught part-time. I had a podcast for fun. I liked running, like I really didn't do anything. So my idea was like, what do I do? I was like, oh, I read Siddhartha every year. That's like that was like my thing. Like, that's what I do.
It was great. And then not only that, the next year, again, it was just an excuse to do another episode. We're like, what do you want? Do you want to be, I think I probably went to revisit guests and I'm like, is there any, let's talk about Siddhartha again. Let's reread it again. I'm, all right, let's reread Siddhartha again. So,
well, I think what happened was, I usually read it around, or I would usually read it around New Year's.
Okay.
And so I invited you to read it with me.
Yes, and I did.
Yeah,
It was good.
yeah.
I enjoyed it. It's my second read of Siddhartha.
Which is a big for you, a reread.
Yeah, right. I'm very much not into rereading things. It just takes longer. Like, it needs to be 30 years, and 30 years is a long time. So
I actually haven't read Siddhartha since we read it last. I skipped it 2 years now.
does that feel weird? Was that
I almost read it, or like I almost put it on to listen to it maybe like a month or two ago, and I just didn't get around to it.
there are just other
Doesn't
things.
feel weird. I kind of want some distance from it just to see what it feels like.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. I've had that. There are books you love, and then unfortunately sometimes you'll go back and revisit them, and you'll get bored immediately. Be like, oh, I remember this. I don't want to read it again. But other times you're like, I thought I loved this. I loved it. Didn't I love this 10 years ago? And like, I don't remember a single damn thing. What the hell? So then it's like a completely new reread, and you get a completely new thing about it. So, yeah. Are you still secretly hoping someone maybe we talked about this? Are you still, now that you kind of, I don't think it's going to take off, do you secretly hope that someone popular or a ton of people come pour in? Here's the only example of something like this happening. It hasn't happened with the podcast. I have a YouTube channel, and all I do in the YouTube channel is barf episodes of this. I barf songs of mine or things I've been recording for like the last 10 years. So it's like, I'm sitting in my living room and I'm like, oh, I like this song. Let me just as I practice this song for the third time, I'll just record it just to throw something on YouTube. I did a song, a Louis Tomlinson song, who was in One Direction. My daughter likes One Direction. I did that Louis Tomlinson song and said, hey, Zahar, I did a Louis Tomlinson song. Look at that. And then there are fan groups online that go roll through stuff, and then on their pages they send people to content and say, go talk about this content and go comment on it. So the biggest thing I got was that stupid Louis Tomlinson video that I only did because whatever. But it's just one Instagram thing somewhere said, oh, here's a Louis Tomlinson cover. Go comment on it about how much you like Louis Tomlinson. So that was it. A bunch of teenage girls or 20-something girls pouring on, going like, oh, we love Louis Tomlinson, blah, blah, blah. But I'll probably never, I don't know. That's it. Other than that, all the other stuff is like low yield. There's some Jewish stuff that I can tell people must go looking for the song, which is what I do all the time. And then so they'll ask, do you have the chords for this or whatever? And then I'll barf the chords or give them the link. But it's just never going to. So I got a taste. Ooh, what happens when someone discovers you and you have a weird blast on one piece of content? I made no adjustments. I'm like, I didn't care. Other than taking that thing and making it the main video, might still be the main video, or I might have changed it. But okay, back to you. Are you still hoping somebody discovers you like that? Like, boom, one of your episodes explodes. You're like, what?
I'm not hoping, no. But okay. I do think I'm probably a lot better. I think I'm a lot better than I probably am. And I don't, and like even when I reflect on it, like, yeah, like I realize if I was really good, I would have been found or type of thing. But I still think I'm better than I actually am. I think.
You think you're better than you actually are. So you think you suspect
yes.
you overestimate the
yes.
appeal of what you're saying.
Yes, my confidence in my skills and ability. I don't have any objective data to justify that belief. And I would say more like writing. I like we already kind of mentioned, I don't try that hard on the podcast. Sure. It goes in waves. Occasionally I might send out a few emails. Like it'll be like one day, like I'll be on the computer for 2 or 3 hours and I'll send out a bunch of emails, and then I might not invite someone for the podcast for months after that.
I'm very much that there were times where I'm like, let me make sure it keeps going. But also I very quickly figured out, oh, this isn't going to grow. It wasn't just because I have an episode a week isn't going to do anything. So then I ramp back to episode a month. And then eventually it's whenever I feel like it. So just like you, I'll have a few hours where I'm like, oh, this and that. And I'll email, oh, let me email about, that's cool. I never thought about that. Let me see if somebody knows about that and they talk to me. Or like, oh, there's this book mentioned. Well, I don't want to read the book, but I can just find the author. Oh, there's the author's email. I'll email them and see if they respond. So I'll have these spurts of stuff, but I'm not trying to keep the regular traffic. They tell you, if you want to build an audience, you got to have regular content that comes out at a regular time. I'm like, I'm not going to get an audience, so it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, but I think that is true. I think there is something about my podcast when I send an email to someone and I only have 20 or 30 episodes over 5 years, like that's not very convincing. So I think if I did really care and I was more consistent, I would be able to get better podcast guests, which would result in more listeners. But so
even simply the number, you're right. There would be like the difference between 20 and 80 is significant.
And the difference between like doing it every single week for 5 years versus even doing it once a month for 3 years is like a huge difference.
It's the regular, it's not so much the frequency. If you're chasing a certain audience, you have to figure out what frequency the audience wants and then see if you can match it, because then that's the perfect synergy. But otherwise, I think it's really just regular. So it would just be you setting a goal on, like right now, I'm kind of like the second Tuesday of every month to try to post something. There were a few months where nothing happened because I was busy. And then I logged a bunch. I did like 4 podcast interviews in a week and a half. And so I'm like, oh, great. Now I'm 4 months out. But yeah, once a month, I don't think the rule, how often you do it, that's an open question. Whether it should be regular, it should be regular. Every magazine is regular. Every newspaper is regular. Every television show is regular. Every YouTube channel that's trying to be taken seriously and trying to be a thing and build audience is regular. Whether it's once a day, once a week, once a month, whatever it is. So you just pick I don't know, that would be the lowest hanging fruit, would be picking a frequency and deciding I'm going to make one once a month, or I'm going to make one every quarter. It's going to be a seasonal podcast, or I'm going to think about it for 3 months and then do it.
And finding something that someone else doesn't have, I think is also, if you want to be successful, so when I first started podcasting, I used to listen to a lot of independent podcasts because we were doing like review exchanges and all these other things. And so I came across the Punisher podcast. I think it was called The Body Count. And I was like, oh, that's an awesome podcast. I wish I would have thought of that. Yes. Just about the Punisher. And I mean, I'm not that into the Punisher, but like, I think he's kind of cool for like a Marvel superhero. But like I listened to their podcast somewhat regularly for a while. And like, it was these two guys that were friends, and once a month they talked about the Punisher for like 2 or 3 hours. And that was like, they eventually stopped doing it for whatever reason, but like that was like a really good podcast idea because they were the only ones doing the Punisher, and they had, a lot of episodes because they were doing it for a while and no one else was doing it.
So when people go looking for audio content to consume about the Punisher, my problem is I don't do that. Another reason from the very beginning I did a podcast which was about nothing is because I would run into this all the time. There'd be a podcast that has like 210 episodes, and it'd be about something I'm really interested in. There's no way on God's green earth I'm listening to, forget a majority of like a significant number of those episodes. And that the fact that you'd flip through, just like you said, 2.5 hours every couple weeks about the Punisher, and there's like 80 episodes now. Do you have any idea how many hours of listening that is? I don't even know how to fathom it. I don't care. Whatever it is, I don't care about any subject as much as that podcast host does. So I'm like, whatever I do, that's why I do this dilettante thing of, I don't make a point of talking about anything because I can't listen to those podcasts.
And like that podcast had a Facebook group that had like a few hundred people.
Nice.
And then within that few hundred people, there was like some really dedicated, loyal listeners.
Yes.
And so there was a community. And so I did join the podcast. I joined the Facebook group, and like that was cool. So like I wanted something like that. The problem was I didn't really have a topic that I cared so much about. And then like things that I was pretty interested in, like running. There's so many running podcasts. It's like,
okay.
Like I would enjoy hosting a running podcast and having a running community, but like there's already like 30 of those that exist. So it's like me to try and like dive into that ocean doesn't make any sense.
But then this is to the beginning of the question. We have podcasts now, which nobody's listening to. So is the dilettante, your podcast currently, it's whatever, I look at the episodes, it's whatever you feel like talking about or whatever somebody else is interested, like I'll interview about that. That's my podcast, which is like, it's not about anything. So is there, if you don't, is it true to say you don't love running enough or discussing running enough to want to do a running podcast that no one's going to listen to? It would not be entertaining. At some point, it'd be like a grind. Do I have to talk for an hour about running every month for the rest of my life? And so would it just not be fun? Does it not sound fun if there's no, like, there aren't listeners there, or it's not growing, or there's not money? Because that's, again, our podcasts don't do that, but we still do them.
Yeah. So my subtitle for my podcast is Random Topics of Interest. So I guess I have too many random topics that consume me. I recently listened to The Fountainhead and the Anthem by Ayn Rand. Mm-hmm. And actually, it's been surprising. I almost brought her up a couple times now, because in The Fountainhead, she has this character, Howard Rourke, and he refuses to compromise. He's an architect, and he will not take a job unless you give him 100% control over what he creates.
Okay.
If you say, hey, I really want... Yes, yes. If you say, hey, I really need the door to be like that, he'll be like, sorry, not going to do it. And so it's kind of funny. To me, he just seems like an absurd. To me, he seems like a absurd person. Yes. He's not a real person, but like to Ayn Rand, he's like the ideal, the ideal artist, the one that doesn't compromise. Go ahead.
Because I was going to ask about that, literally her take, because that sounds like, to you and me, that sounds like a comical character, a villainous character, a stupid character. Because I thought Ayn Rand, the way she gets touted by libertarians and people who are interested in free markets, etc., well, those are all about adjusting. You don't go out into the world and I'm going to have to look at positivism. Whatever is her thing, positive. What is her philosophy called?
Objectivism.
Thank you, objectivism. Because I have a lot of respect for libertarianism. I think the philosophy that, like, you are a person with a powerful vision and you enact your vision on the world, I think that's a load of crap. And so there's a handful of people who have a vision and can enact it upon the world. Everybody else is like, I have things I want, you have things you want. We're going to try to figure out how these two things can work together. That vision of, like, I'm an architect and whatever I want, like, that is fine for a handful of people around the world. The world is full of hundreds of thousands of artists who want to just make what they make, and they refuse to make something for someone else, and they only make what they make. Most of them will never be paid at all. No one will ever like what they like. They will have no status. That will gain them no money or success in the world. So if her argument is that you need to stick to your guns and no guarantee you may live the life of a pauper and total disaster, but I suspect that's not her argument. Her argument is probably, in order to be successful, you must be this powerful person to exert your artistic vision on the world. What do you feel like it is? So I'm caricaturing her.
Yes. I'm not quite sure. And okay. So this is actually going to connect a few ideas here. One idea that we'll maybe come back to. Me and you are both Howard Rourke-ish, because we're doing this podcast and we're like just doing what we want.
True.
And so
that is, oh shit, you're right.
Yes. Now, two, I don't think she thinks everyone could be a Howard Rourke. I do think she is insinuating that when you're rich and powerful and you're still, like, conforming to other people. So like there is an aspect of, like, conforming, and she really hates the idea of, like, altruism and selflessness. She thinks these are evil when you do things. So she wants you to do things because that's what you want, not because you think this is what society wants, or because Christianity told you you need to give all your money to poor people, or, whatever other ideology that she thinks corrupts society.
That is fair. That same thing gets, again, in existentialism. That is, there's no meaning. You have to make meaning. That's going to require you to figure out what to do. It's not imposed morality, because none of that morality has any objective basis. And it's also like the Romantics. I remember reading the English Romantic poets, and they have that same kind of thing. Also, the Transcendentalists in America. There are these strands in philosophy that are about you can't conform to other people's visions. It has to be your own vision. That's the only authentic, true vision. You have to figure out what you believe, what you want to see happen, and then you have to push that through, even if it's nothing. Like Whitman or Thoreau, it's not like they were trying to completely transform the world. They were just like, I'm going to live according to the way I think I'm supposed to live in nature, and I'm going to make art I like, and, I'm just going to make whatever I like.
Yeah, and so these are all topics that I would be interested in talking about. Like, so for instance, The Fountainhead. I'm going to do the reason I read that book is because I'm supposed to talk with this guy who's loves Ayn Rand's philosophy, and I would actually like to even talk about the book a little bit more if I can find someone willing that I feel is thoughtful enough in maybe has diverse enough opinions to mine about the book. Like that would be another episode that I would like to do, if I could find the right person. Like Emerson and Thoreau, like transcendentalism, that was an episode. I actually reached out to a bunch of people that have written essays or wrote books about that topic. And I never was able to get one. And I really wanted to connect it to Hermann Hesse and Siddhartha, because I feel like it's definitely like within that same flavor. And then one more idea, just Taoism. Taoism's one that like I've been learning about Taoism because I'm going to talk with a Taoist sometime this month. So these are like, this is why I'm not doing regular running episodes. Yeah. And like whether they would actually sustain me, probably not. I guess I don't care that much about running.
This is probably why I find some sense of simpatico with you about this podcast thing, and why I thought, who would I talk to about this 100th episode? It would be you. And I realized listening to the two of us talk about our podcasts, it is really like both our podcasts are literally just functioning as outlets for our curiosity, and they are not in fact trying to build an edifice of. If I went through all your podcasts, I could not find that you're trying to build an edifice of, I want to promote Hermann Hesse's work, or I want to promote whatever. You're studying different religions and philosophies right now, comparative religion. Like, you're not trying to do comparative religion. You're like, I'm curious about this right now. I want to delve deeper into this, so that's what I'm going to talk to. And then in a year from now, I'll be something completely, maybe it'll be related, maybe it won't be. It's whatever you feel like talking to people about.
Yeah, and it all comes back it all comes back around eventually. That's like the fun thing for me about learning is even like now I'm probably other people have done this, but I can't help but like find similarities between Taoist ideas and Ayn Rand. Not necessarily that they're similar or like how they contrast, or anyways, like most people probably don't sit down and be like, I'm going to compare the Fountainhead with the Tao Te Ching, but yet that's what I end up doing because I'm looking at these somewhat random topics at the same time.
This is precisely what I'm trying to do with a whole nother thing. So having these in-person sessions where it's cross-text conversations where I'm literally like a nature book, a poetry book, and a philosophy book, or a religion book, a nature book, and a poetry book. Which ones? I don't care. Flip through it. Oh, this looks like I could pull something out of this. And then literally flipping through and being like, this. Here's a page on this. That sounds interesting. Get to the next book. Flip. Okay, that's a short. Oh, I think I see some. Is there a relation between these three things? So I think that same thing about just wandering around in the world and picking things up, and the particular time you picked them up, you picked up Ayn Rand, or you picked up Taoism, then you picked up Ayn Rand. You're like, oh, I see the relations. Rather than there being a grand edifice, at the end of the day, in 5 years, you're going to write a treatise about how Ayn Rand is Taoist or Ayn Rand is not Taoist. Like, no, you're just going to keep picking things up and putting them down and comparing the things that are around at the same time. Yeah, what's a fancy word? Syncretism, or some fancy word for that. Just pulling things together. Yeah, I relate very much to that intellectually.
And then maybe one more part of a previous question that I didn't quite answer. I think I expect to be better at writing than podcasting. Like I've been working on a novel. It kind of stopped. I have a newborn that's 5 months old, so she has pretty much ended writing. I'd be lucky if I wrote 1 to 400 words since she was born. So, but I do have this novel that I started. Some sections of it I've worked on a lot. Like there's maybe the first chapter that I wrote, I've probably revised 15 to 20 times type of thing. So yeah, yes. Okay. So I've been, parts of it I spent a lot of time on, and I think I'm probably in the 40,000 word range.
Okay.
So that would be a very short novel as of now. I think my goal is like get at least 60 to 80,000 words and then polish it up a bit. It's like something like that. I have no intention on making any money off of that, but deep down I do think I can write a good book. Now,
okay.
The bar for running books is pretty low. Like running, that's the other thing. The book's somewhat about running.
Yeah. A fiction book about running.
Kind of, yeah. So the more and more I write, the less and less it gets about running. So like that's like the other, I guess, challenge to. But back to just like I randomly came across this podcast, great podcast. I wish I would have come up with this podcast. It's called I think the title is the Running Books Podcast. They literally, two hosts, they read a running book, they interview the author, and the books are just about running. And they've had some really, good guests as far as like running, but and they're the only ones doing this. So like these guests have like not talked about their books. And so I listened to a bunch of their episodes. I really liked it. It helped me to gather some information, like you're saying. Like, I don't want to read this whole book, but I can listen to these people talk about it for 1 to 2 hours, and I can get an idea whether I want to read it or not, whether it has anything useful or not. And I did find several books from them that I did actually read or like engage with deeper. So I had them on, and then they only reviewed maybe 1 or 2 fiction books. And so then I was like, why aren't there more running fiction? And so then I read like the top 5 running fiction books that I could find. And I found they all kind of sucked. And the best one was barely about running. Like the best book that I read was really about the Rwandan genocide. And the main character just happened to be like a track runner, like before it started. So the book was kind of about running, but not really. The book's not really about running. The main character just happened to be a runner.
Now, that is precisely how people figure out that, I think, that's how you find not your calling, your magical calling, but that is specifically, I think you're looking for a niche. That is a niche. So you're like, maybe I should write a fiction book about running. Am I inspired to write a fiction book about running? I dance and don't delve into those niches. I just dip in and out and then don't sort of park there long enough to make a thing. But I think that's a brilliant strategy for you look around. Here are the things I like. Here are the things I like and where they come together. And like, nobody's doing that intersection. Would anybody want that? Does it? Now I'm so interested in it. It doesn't matter. I would do that. So yeah, your podcast is like about whatever. But this book you've devoted time to, that's very specific. That's really going deep, very specifically on a very small niche thing. That's very interesting.
Yeah. And then a couple of my episodes, I interviewed this guy I went to high school with. I didn't actually know him in high school. I may have never talked to him once in high school. He was a couple years older than me, but he ran for the University of Oregon. He ran in the Olympic trials a couple times. And so I ended up interviewing him about running a couple times. And so that was like research for the book, and then also ended up being some podcast episodes. And so like a bunch of my people that I've reached out to were somewhat related to my running book project.
Okay. This is interesting, and it's inspirational, or at least it's making me think about what you're telling me, because I feel I relate to some of the things we're producing, and I relate to some of the ways we think about stuff. But I recently struggle with a project. Like, I just got done going through a year of rabbinic school. That's a project, and now the project is done, and now it's 4 months later. And I just haven't settled on, is there anything that's inspiring me to try? There's little things. I've got lots of little tendrils, but nothing where I'm like, let me try this. So this inspires me to think about in the next couple weeks, if there's an experiment or a project that's calling me in the same way, because I can feel that lack there of like, I'm not working on something deep right now. There's pre-existing things that are kind of churning along and nothing's calling me. So what would it take to feel called again to do the next thing?
One of the things that called me is I literally think I can write a better book than these books I read. I mean, like the books I read, I only finished, I think, 1 of them.
Okay.
And that was the one that I said was more about the Rwandan genocide than about running. It was a good book. It is a good book.
Right.
The other books are not they're not good. I mean,
that
like,
is such a strong impetus. You go out to the world to look at the art in whatever the kind of things being produced. That's why I made a podcast. That's probably part of the reason why you made a podcast. I listen to these other things and I didn't like them. I think it's a huge.
or like you listen to these podcasts and like, oh my God, these ads are so annoying.
You're right.
It's like,
So
I'm going to show,
I'm not gonna have
I'm going to show him, I'm going to have a podcast with no ads on it. And it's like, oh, these other people, they promote their podcasts. They're so pathetic. Oh, please listen to me. Please listen to me. Like, subscribe, retweet, blah, blah,
Smash
blah, blah.
that
It's like,
button, right.
yeah, it's like, oh, dude, these people are so pathetic. I'm going to make a podcast, no ads. I'm not even going to share it with anyone.
Exactly.
When I meet someone at a party and they say, oh, I love listening to podcasts, I say, oh, that's cool. I don't even tell them I have one.
I'm exactly the same way. I don't even tell people I have a podcast. I think it only comes up if I ask someone. The only way it comes up is I ask a person, oh, I'm so curious about that. I have a podcast. I interview people. Could I talk to you about that for my podcast? But yeah, when people bring up stuff, I'm the same way. There's something about some allergy to self-promotion or like, I don't, whatever. What's the thing about this thing sitting out there, this pure little thing?
This is the Howard Workism.
Yeah,
this is
it's
us,
the Howard
This is us
Workism.
that we have this ideal of what a pure,
Yeah.
you throw in your word, intellectual person, podcaster, creative, whatever word you want to label it as. We have this idea of like what the pure person should be, and we're not willing to conform. I don't know. I think that's a pretty good explanation.
We can close somewhere around here now, but I want to talk about evolution because what you just brought up, if we looked at this as a philosophical, intellectual, spiritual, creative thing, it's exactly what you said. There's a pure thing I envision in the universe, and I want to make this pure thing. But the reality is probably that you and I are, understandably, our brains, our bodies, our habits don't want to expend energy on trying to make this thing better. If we did, I'm convinced you and I are not stupid. We're smart. We could figure out, well, if I really want someone to advertise or make some money off this, or I want more people to listen to this, I could work. I could spend energy and effort on trying to get people to listen to this. I'm convinced if you wanted more people to listen to your podcast, you would go out in the world, find out what are the ways people are encouraged to listen to podcasts, change the podcast a little bit, change the frequency, figure out ways I can market and cross promote. The numbers would go up. Whether it would ever be successful according to your benchmark, I don't know. But for one reason, your part of it is I don't want to spend the time on that. So part of it is, oh, I want it to be pure in this pure thing, but also I just don't want to spend time. If somebody came along and said, I'll pay you $1 million to make a running podcast like all the other running podcasts, or something small. I'll pay you $1,000 a month to make a running podcast. It has to be what I say. It's going to be about running. There has to be ads on it. Would you say, no way, I'm not doing it? Or would you say, I'll take $1,000 to make a running podcast? That sounds like fun.
Sorry, so $1,000 per episode, or?
No, yeah, like I wanted you to make a monthly running thing, a 2-hour running podcast. I'll pay you. I'll pay you $1,000 to make. I'll make it big because I think $1,000 is big.
Yeah, I don't think I would actually. But this doesn't say. This says more about my family's economic position than it does if because if my wife didn't make as much money as she makes, I would change I'd change my answer very quickly.
I got you. Okay, so it really is, you're thinking about monetarily, but it's not because that wouldn't bother you. It's more that I would be weighing whether it bothers me against whether I need the money.
Right. I'm definitely like I'm not a complete Howard Rourke. I will do things for money, but
right.
Like my need for money is pretty low compared to the average American. So in that case, I do have So this is actually man, I was going to bring up a couple other ideas, but Howard Rourke for a significant portion of the book is like barely scraping by. Like he practically goes out of business. Like no one will hire him, type of thing. And the logical thing is like if your thing is building,
yes,
take the commissions, make the money, and then you can build your own stuff. So I mean, like there is something about you need economic freedom to do the thing you want to do. And so this is the weird thing about Howard Rourke where I don't agree with, even though the reason I agree with him or the reason I have parallels with him now is because I have the economic freedom. If I didn't have the economic freedom, my choices would be way different. For one, I might not even do a podcast because I wouldn't have time.
This is good because you and I, again, this is where there are similarities between us and differences. I'm in a much more, because I had kind of a secure full-time job. It has never rematerialized, kind of been underemployed. And so I'm in a different position yes, so I can feel the different financial pressures, more financial pressure, and how that changes, how that shifts how you think about stuff and whether you can talk yourself into stuff. Yeah, for sure. I'm going to have to, at some point, it's so long. I suppose I'll have to read The Fountainhead just because people talk about it. I mean, I can just read the Anthem.
Listen to it.
Far more, is Anthem philosophy? Fountainhead is fiction. Is Anthem straight philosophy?
No.
Or is it also
Anthem's fiction. Anthem's
but it's
like
much shorter.
It is much shorter. You could probably read it in an hour.
Holy crap. And it's still fiction. Is it? But does it express the exact same ideas?
No.
Okay.
I mean, like, if you want to boil it down to one or two sentences, yes, but the stories are quite different.
Okay, I'm gonna look. Then this is good because I'm gonna, before reading these things, I'm gonna look forward to hearing you and your Fountainhead interest in person talk about this stuff on your upcoming episode or episodes, and then I'll decide what I think about. If I like it or I'm interested enough to be like, all right, let me reread read the Fountainhead.
Can you get enough just from like reading a summary? I would say no. I didn't love the book. I actually wrote a review, a reading response. I wrote a reading response I'll send to you.
Okay, that would be awesome. But I'm looking for all that to say. I'm looking forward to your episode. So I don't know. It's 100th episode of my thing. I'm still going to keep doing it. It's still interesting to me, and it's useless and intriguing and fun and frustrating.
No, it's useful. It's useful, but it's only useful to you.
That's true. It's only useful to me.
And maybe your daughter, potentially, in 30 years.
Somewhere when I'm dead, and she'll be like, oh, I want to hear Dad's voice.
No,
and so you'll go back
I think
to
that
the
could be,
podcast.
like, I typically listen to, I made a edited version of my dad's 3 episodes with my original podcast, and I listen to it every year on his birthday.
I made a podcast. My first podcast was with my friend. We never published it. I think we only recorded 2 or 3 episodes on YouTube, recording stuff, and then never put it out anywhere. But I had it. He died. I don't want to listen to it. And I sent it. I was interesting. I kind of made sure it was okay. Sent it to his parents. I don't think they'll listen to it either. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else out there of him talking about stuff. And so I think it was I think it's maybe some they'll listen to it eventually. Maybe they listen to a tiny bit of it. But yeah, it was just us talking about things in the universe. But it's probably the only thing recorded of his voice of any length like that. A conversation with my friend who's now dead. I think it's the only conversation in existence.
And this is maybe something that's more about me too, but I really don't like the idea of being forgotten. So maybe this is another like hidden motivation, is like, I'm doing all this so that I live on, type of thing. Wow. Like, that's not what I'm consciously thinking, but like just thinking of hidden motivations behind what I'm doing, like that's probably a decent one.
Again, I like your attention to evolutionary pressures, and you're trying to suss out motivations that you're not really aware of all the time or don't want to be aware of all the time. So that has influenced me in the past 6 to 9 months, that thinking. So I find that helpful as well. So, okay, I'll listen to your Fountainhead episodes later on. I got episodes coming out. What is it? It's this one will
March
come out
31st. Today.
It's March 31st. Yeah. This one's going to come out sometime in midsummer because I think I have some banked.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah. So, and I only do it once a month now. When I did it once a week, that was a lot more pressure. But
I did
too much time.
Okay, I did look at what episode number that you were on, because you mentioned wanting to do the 100th episode, and I did notice that you were like in the lower 90s. Yeah, so I was expecting this to happen like months later.
Yeah, 96 came out on March 10th.
Okay.
So this is March, April, May, June. This should come out the second Tuesday of July.
Okay. So I thought you were just completely randomly, but you are sticking with the once a month.
Yeah, I stopped doing the once a week because it was just, once I had other things. Yeah, it's not fun. It was pressure. Although, again, I'm going to think about the pressure of having to produce more of those, and having to listen to your voice more, and having to do that stuff more. Maybe I should get back in the habit, or maybe I've also toyed with the idea coming up with a second focus podcast that's different. I toyed with that and haven't settled on that. So I don't know. Maybe I'll think about that.
Yeah, I think listening to yourself is maybe a good idea, just all around. Like,
I agree.
Because because you are a good writer, but writing and speaking are not similar enough. Like even when I started doing the first podcast, I was a decent writer. I was an English teacher.
Yeah.
And it was kind of surprising. Like I said, I used the word painful. It was kind of surprising that like how bad I was, considering that I taught English for like that was my job.
But in the rambling conversations of podcasts, did you get feedback from someone outside your own head that you were having a rambling, pointless conversation, or you just felt that because you were listening to yourself?
No, this is all like my internal criticism. Yes, absolutely. Okay. But I think you could objectively see a big difference.
Well, now here's the last. So then I'll close with a challenge. Send me what you regard as like, this is one of the early episodes that shocked me with how bad it was. And then I want to externally listen and be like, how bad? And then not to say I'm curious whether what you think is bad sounds bad to me objectively.
Okay, that's a good project. Okay.
Okay, awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time for this. This was immensely helpful and enjoyable, and I guess we'll keep muddling on and doing our podcasts, even though we know they'll probably never catch on and they'll probably never make a bunch of money.
Very unlikely.